we focus on women and children, and that is important. But man, those men, those young men and old men who, when they see bombs dropped on high-rise buildings, collapsing on people that could be their family or their neighbors, they don't run away. They run towards those things, knowing that they're putting their own lives at risk, but just for the chance that they could hear the screams and cries of people under the rubble, that they may be able to, may God protect those men. We hear the statistics now. We're close to 14 or 16,000 human beings that have lost their lives since this terrible massacre began. 5,000 to 6,000 children. 70% of those people have been children or women, of that greater statistic. And the 30% left over, the vast majority of them were civilian men as well. They were grandfathers and fathers and young men who just were looking through the same things that we do here as young men and old men. Take care of our families, provide security, provide safety, provide in the way men feel the need to provide for their own families. And in the backdrop of this terrible thing that's happening, those things have been stripped away from the identity of those men, and they've instead been defined in this terrible framework that if they are men of fighting age, they must have deserved it. And the last few sermons I've given, we focused on children and focused on women and focused on the vulnerable populations, the elderly, and often we forget about this group of people who are often out there risking their lives in hopes to preserve the dignity left for those people they're responsible for. In the last few weeks, I've had to say here, just I'm sure as we've had at every one of these type of gatherings, I hate that I have to be here on the Capitol grounds, trying my best and our best to be heard and to be seen by people in hopes that we wake up a little, ignite a little bit of humanity in their hearts to call for a ceasefire, to call for the end of violence, to call for the end of dropping of bombs on civilian populations, to call for the end of war crimes. And we still have to come another week here on a Friday instead of at our mosque, where prayer is so often individual and spiritual and an experience between ourselves and God. I think it's important as a reminder. My initial intention before seeing the audience that I have today was to focus on the fact that it doesn't matter if anybody hears us. It doesn't matter if the people who sit in this building hear us, or the people in DC hear us, or if Joe Biden hears us. It doesn't matter. Our obligation in front of our Creator, and our obligation to ourselves as fellow human beings, and our obligation to the people who sit behind a prison wall in Gaza, is that we come and we speak on their behalf, and we pray together, and we connect our hearts with the only thing that binds us, which is our shared humanity. There's a universal in the Abrahamic faith, the story of Cain and Abel. And the story of Cain and Abel in the Muslim tradition is very close to the Christian and Jewish traditions. It's the sons of Adam, one of whom became greatly jealous of the other and was misguided by his own desires and his own logic of what he thought was right and was just. And he became enraged by this so much that when they were asked to make a sacrifice to God, that Cain's sacrifice wasn't accepted because it came from a place of arrogance, and Abel's was accepted because it came from a place of humility and sincerity. And this resulted in Cain developing so much rage that he attacks. First he says, "I'm going to kill you," and his brother says, "You can raise your hand against me, but I will not raise my hand back against you. You can kill me, and I will not." We are different. Today is the day we define ourselves as different. There are differences between us. There are people willing to murder people and rationalize that murder. There are people willing to drop bombs knowing that they will kill children in their sleep, knowing they will orphan a generation of Palestinian youth, know that they will displace 1.2 million people from their homes in a weekend. There are people who know that they will carry that definition of them, the self-defining fact that they've accepted this for themselves. And there's the other side that says, no matter what you do to us, No matter what crime you commit against us, we will not lose our humanity. No matter what rationalization of terrible things that you do, we will not use the same language. We will not use the same arguments. We will call a spade when we see it. We will call evil evil when we see it, even if it is from ourselves. You know, there's been so much of a request when we talk about these things, and some of the focus of what I'm going to focus on today is the personal interactions we have with our colleagues and our peers and our neighbors and so on. We feel this great burden to define our point of starting as a condemnation of one side. Have you condemned Hamas? Have you condemned the terrorists? Have you condemned October 7th? And I've said it before, and I need to say it again because you need to hear it so you can articulate it to those around you. You don't need to ask a Muslim. You don't need to ask a human being if they condemn a terrorist attack. It's a silly thing to require as a starting point. We are human beings. And the basis of our condemnation or our disgust with an act has to do with the loss of humanity in any one of these acts. October 7th resulted in atrocities that our hearts tremble at the thought of. To be required then to say out loud, oh yeah, of course we start, it's just a point that sets a framework that we should not accept. Who we are as Muslims, who we are as human beings, who we are as Americans is ones that the definition of who we are is that we value life. We value the sanctity of human life, and we value humanity. And you shouldn't accept a framework that starts with the conversation where you have to define the fact that you're a human. Are you a human? Is that what you're asking me? Is that we have to start the conversation? Are you human? Can we start? Okay, now we're human. Now I'll listen to what you have to say about the war crimes. What a terrible question to be asked. What an unacceptable way to start a conversation about the preservation of human life. Our demand is to equally apply those frameworks to all things happening. That if we call one side of this argument that drops bombs on innocent civilians, if we call the perpetrators of the October 7th terrorist attack terrorists because they go into homes and terrorize civilians who are unarmed, then equally apply that language to the side that does the exact same thing via F-16s thousands of feet in the sky through buttons. Children are still dying. Women are still being widowed. Men are still striving to find security for their families. The terror is still there. One of the things I was going to focus on this community here, my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters, is that I know, like me, you have sat in your car before going into work and felt a terrible thing in your heart. This terrible feeling that I have to walk into an environment where I constantly have to explain myself and try to convince people that the people of Gaza are human beings. That the people on the side of the argument that have been justified, that we can massacre them, annihilate them, that one of the ministers in the Knesset says an option includes a nuclear weapon, nuking Gaza, that those people deserve to be recognized for their humanity. And to start your day that way, the way I had to start my day that way, walking into hospitals knowing that my colleagues and peers start so different from a starting point in where they see these people. And then I know that the mountain I have to climb in education and explanation, an education in history, is daunting and exhausting. And it's been 40 some odd days now, and it feels like it hasn't moved very far. You know, the Greek mythology character Sisyphus is a character I refer to a lot. He's that guy that has to push a boulder up a hill for eternity as a punishment. And at the end of the day, it starts back at the bottom again. It starts back at the bottom. That's his punishment. He pushes a boulder up a mountain, and he thinks he gets really far, and the moment it gets to the top, it rolls back to the bottom. And that's what it feels like, this Sisyphusian task of trying to bring people to the side of acknowledging humanity, an entire 2.4 million group of people, and the millions of refugees outside of there. It feels like every time we get a little bit further, we start the next day at the bottom of the hill again. The reason I like that story in Greek mythology is because the modern interpretation of Sisyphus is that he smiles as he pushes the boulder up the hill. Because he recognizes, just as a principle within our Islamic faith, that we have no control over the results. We have no control over turning people's hearts. We have no control over who signs what bill to send $14 billion to bomb more kids and women and children and young men who've done nothing to deserve it. We have no control over those things. But we have control over how we put our hands on that boulder and keep pushing. In Islam, one of the things that you have to accept as a Muslim, as someone who submits to God, is that we are judged by our intention and never the results. That if I go towards Ibrahim to strike him, there's a good chance I could trip over, fall, and never get a chance to do so. And vice versa, if I go to help him up off the floor, there's a chance I trip over and never get a chance to reach my hand out and help him. And then it doesn't matter if I ever get there, but that the intention in my heart was to move towards him, to elevate him, is the way God sees that action. Whether it happens or not is not within my control. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, this is not unique to us, by the way. This feeling of exasperation, of trying to convince people of things, is not unique to us. It's a universal feeling. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is a ayah revealed in the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, where Allah Ta'ala tells him, "Oh Muhammad, you are exasperated trying to explain, trying to convince them. You have no control. You have no control on who is guided. Your job is just to convey the message. Just convey truth, convey compassion, behave with the character expected of you. And then sleep at night knowing that it is God who turns hearts. It is God who guides whom he wills. And it is he, through a lens much greater than ours, that assesses justice from injustice and truth from falsehood." I'm going to conclude the first part of the khutbah with this. We believe as Muslims there's a moment on Friday where all prayer is accepted. And acceptance doesn't always come in the timeline we wish. Acceptance of a prayer doesn't mean that you get the immediate response. You know, I asked for a Lamborghini and it's waiting for me at my parking lot. My RAV4 is gone, and I have that is not an answer to a prayer. Prayer in Islam is unique when we make dua. When we call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are saying to Allah, it is a acknowledgement of our position before him. Oh Allah, you have power and we have none. Oh Allah, you have wisdom and we only have the knowledge that you allowed us to know. And so we call upon you, not really understanding what is good for us and what is best for us, or when this thing is supposed to come to an end. But we call upon you with sincerity in our hearts to forgive us and ask for an end to the violence for those that are innocent. I was going to conclude with a very common story. A very common story that is in the Quran, that is in Hadith, that is referenced quite a bit. The reason Masjid al-Aqsa is so valuable to the Muslim community from a spiritual perspective, the reason it's considered a holy land, is it was the first place that Muslims were directed to pray towards. We pray now towards Mecca, because that was the kind of final place chosen to unite the Muslims to pray around. It's not praying to the building, but praying to a point of central unity, a unifying point. And before the Kaaba was established as that point, it was Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem that the Muslims prayed towards. And beyond this, we have this beautiful narration of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ ascending to heaven as part of his revelation from the point of Masjid al-Aqsa. Lost power there. That he was transported. Okay, I'll just talk about it. That he was transported from Mecca to Masjid al-Aqsa and then elevated to heaven to have a conversation with God. and he experienced different things in heaven as he was elevating to the levels where he would be alone with God. And at one point, he's accompanied by the angel Gabriel. And at one point, he smells a beautiful smell. And he goes to the angel Gabriel. What is that? What is that wonderful smell that fills the heavens? This fragrance that's so beautiful. And the angel Gabriel begins to tell him the story of where the fragrance comes from in heaven. He says the Pharaoh, his daughter, had a slave who used to comb her hair. She was the hairdresser of the daughter of Pharaoh. And one day, as she was doing her job as a servant or a slave in the court and combing the hair of the Pharaoh, she dropped the comb. And it falls to the floor. And if you've ever been around a Muslim long enough, you know that when they drop something or they start something, they say, Bismillah, in the name of God, almost like a exclamation point. Like, oh, Bismillah, I'm going to pick that up, right? In the name of God. And so the Pharaoh's daughter hears this. Remember, Pharaoh, who proclaims himself a god in this world, right? And this hairdresser who is of Jewish faith, right? This, of the children of Israel, but believes in the monotheistic God, she says, the Pharaoh's daughter says, when you say in the name of God, you mean my father, right? And in this moment where this servant girl, whose status in that society was as low as it could be, she was a slave in the court, feels something in her heart and decides that she's going to take a stand today. And it comes from nowhere sometimes. Sometimes you don't know when your opportunity of truth, of standing with truth, is going to come. You don't know who your Pharaoh is going to be that day that you have to stand up in front of. And so for some reason in her heart this day, she decided, I wasn't going to play this game anymore. I'm going to stand on my principle. She says, no, when I say in the name of God, I mean my God and your father's God. And the daughter runs off to her father. So I'm going to tell my dad on you, okay? I'm going to go to Baba Biden and ask for a little bit more money. And she runs to the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh comes and he gathers the court and he says, I've heard, O servant girl, O slave girl, that you dropped a comb and you said in the name of God, and when you were asked if you meant me, you said no, you meant something else. And she said, yes, when I said in the name of God. Just imagine the imagery of a small servant girl in front of the Pharaoh, the most powerful man that walked the face of the earth to this point of time, the most corrupt and evil kind of image of what a human being can be, right? Kills people just because he says he can. Enslaves the masses of the Jewish people because he says he can. And she looks up to him from his throne and says, no, when I said God, I meant my God and your God. And he says, let's see, let's test this theory. And so he brings her family, he brings her children to the court, and he melts down some type of metal into a molten lava. And he says, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, as he holds the oldest child over the molten lava and says, when you say in the name of God, you mean me, correct? And she stands firm. She says, no, when I said in the name of God, I said in the name of my God, your daughter's God, and your God. And the Pharaoh, cruelly and evilly as he is, throws the first child into the lava and he dies. And this is repeated 3 times. And every time he says, now that I've broken your spirit by taking another one of your children, I just want to ask the question one more time. When you said in the name of God, you meant in the name of the Pharaoh. And he said, no. And every time she holds a little bit more steadfast. Every time she holds a little bit more steadfast. And she says, no, in the name of my God and your daughter's God and your God. And finally, she's left with an infant in her arms, the last child that she has. And in this moment, they begin pulling the child away from her. And he says it again. And in this moment, as a mother would, any mother would, her heart begins to tremble. She's lost 3 of her children. She can't bear to lose another, the baby in her arms. And her heart begins to tremble. And in this moment when she stood for the truth, and this is the lesson I hope we take away, it is when you think you've lost. It is when you think you've lost too much already. when Allah Ta'ala decides to show you victory. And victory may not come the way you think. And so God creates a miracle for this woman, this slave girl with no name that we know. He creates a miracle and he allows the baby to speak as an infant. And the baby turns to his mother and says, "Hold steadfast. We are in heaven already." And another narration, the baby turns to her so that the Pharaoh can hear and says, "The punishment of the hereafter is worse than the punishment here. It's going to be okay." God's got this under control. Justice doesn't always happen at the time that we want it. And they are both thrown into the fire and they die. And it sounds like the worst story you've ever heard on a Friday sermon trying to uplift you, except that we hear this story in the Islamic tradition from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who says, when he asked the angel Gabriel, what was it that filled the scent of Jannah, of heaven, with such a beautiful scent? And Gabriel turns to him and says, before she died, she asked to be buried with her children. And the scent you smell that fills the heavens is the scent of her and her children in heaven together. The people in Gaza that we see, and I know you've cried tears the way I've cried tears, watching mothers hold their lifeless children in their arms, watching children approach the shrouded dead, calling for their parents. When you see grandmas go to a truckload of bodies and say, "Who is this?" And they say, I saw this yesterday, and this mother, this grandmother, she looks like, is saying, "And who's this person you're bringing?" And they say, "Salah." And she says, "Oh, Salah, la ilaha illallah Muhammad. May God protect you, Salah." When say salam, say peace to the people who have left before us. And then another body's about, "Who is this?" "This is Khadija." "Oh, Khadija." These women that we see in these videos are like the servant girl in the house of the Pharaoh. Everything is stripped away from them. And in those moments when they are confronted again with how they're going to react, they say, "There's nothing you can do to me. There's nothing that you can do to me in this world that will break me." I don't see broken people in Palestine. I see broken people here. I feel broken for sure. I don't see broken people in those. You see them get strengthened by these terrible things. Because they know something that I wish I could convince myself of, which is that they know that those family members are in heaven. They know it in a way that I wish I could say that I knew it. I wish I could say I had the certainty that I see that they have. Because there's no way they could bear what they bear and react with the grace and the persistence and the resilience that they do unless they believe this. They just can't. You see it, by the way. You see these young men, sometimes they cry when they hear their brother died or their friend died. And they say to somebody who's trying to record them these strange moments in 2023 where we can record tragedy in a way we've never been able to record. And it's both a blessing and a curse because we are videotaping misery. And at the same time, for the first time in humanity's existence, we get to watch on TV a genocide and ethnic cleansing occur, and truth cannot be hidden by propaganda and by manipulation and by covering, and the same old lines just don't work anymore. They just don't work it. And that's the last thing I'm going to conclude with. If I conclude with anything positive from this, know that the people of Gaza, those who have left, if they could remove the veil of this world, this painting of facade that we believe existence is, we would see them in Jannah. We would see them more happy than we could ever be. But beyond this, also understand, it's the first time since I've been on this earth 37 years where I've seen the tide just slightly shift. The sentiment about this terrible disaster for 75 years that's been supported by our government here in the States and been supported by the internet, it's just ever so slightly, finally you get to see bits and pieces of truth that they can't hide. They can't hide the lack of humanity. They can't hide the desire to relocate 7 million Palestinians from the land that they owned and were a part of 75 years. They can't hide it anymore. You know, I know it, and I get some level of satisfaction. You should too. When one of those people in the Knesset, part of the Likud movement, that are the monsters that are propagating this war, when one of them says something out loud, the part that they should have kept silent, you know, like the guy, the cultural guy who said that he would nuke Gaza as part of an option. We know it. We know that every single part of the Likud movement, we're like, oh, don't say that out loud. You're not supposed to say that part out loud. And now they can't hide from it. Because just like truth, just like the daughter's hairdresser, just like the truth couldn't be hidden from her in moments of difficulty, in the same way, Cain will always be Cain. He defines himself. He can't help himself. And Abel will always be Abel. The people that preserve humanity and stand with truth will always be those people. You could do whatever. You could smear them and try to cover them up and imprison them and torture them and withhold resources from them, but they will always be Abel. They will always be Abel. They will always be who they are. And remember that. Stand with the people of Abel. Stand and be that person. And I know it's hard. SubhanAllah, I've been saying it a bunch of times. I don't know how to articulate it more meaningfully. I know how hard it is because we're scared sometimes. I work for multiple hospitals. I have no idea what me saying Free Palestine can do for my employment. I have no idea what it means in 2023. But I know that there are people dying. And there are people risking their lives to say the truth. Even Israelis. There are wonderful Israeli people on the streets protesting on behalf of people in Gaza. Mm-hmm. The Jewish Forces for Peace are the ones sitting in Grand Central Station, getting arrested. There was that little old grandma that you guys probably saw she's sitting there saying, arrest me. There's nothing that you can do to make me leave this spot other than arresting me. There are beautiful people that show themselves in this time. Just make sure you stand with those people. Be with those people. When we face God one day in account, you are grouped, right? In Islam, we believe this. You are entered into heaven in groups, in Zumara, in groups. Make sure you're affiliated with the right side of history here. Make sure that the people saying with the truth, that you stand shoulder to shoulder. Make sure you stand with our people. The people who don't sleep at night because they think about the mothers in Gaza. And they aren't trying to concoct ways of hiding the truth. Or mocking those who are suffering. I conclude, I went way longer than 15 minutes. I'm sorry I do that. But let's conclude with a prayer. It's important for everybody to know, including our non-Muslim brothers and sisters, that for us, Friday prayers, it's a pillar of who we are. We come together as a community every Friday for some type of a reminder, and then we pray together knowing that it's our chance to kind of replenish depleted stores of faith and goodness and exhaustion, right? And so it's our chance to do that, and we conclude with the prayer together. So we're going to pray together, and then we'll do a congregational prayer, and then we'll conclude, inshallah. Oh Allah, we ask you, because without your answer, we have no answer. Oh Allah, we ask you because you are the strong and we are the weak. Oh Allah, we ask you for guidance, for without your guidance, we are astray. Oh Allah, we ask you, because we know that you see all, and you see the hearts of those who are diseased, and you see the hearts of those that are striving to make this world a better place. Oh Allah, we ask and beg of you, because we have no one else to turn to. Oh Allah, we turn away from those who silence truth, and we turn away from those that try to cover up injustice. Oh Allah, we turn to you because we know that there will be a day where all this truth will be available to everyone, and justice will be eternal. Oh Allah, we ask and beg of you to send peace and blessings upon the people of Gaza. Oh Allah, we ask and beg of you to end the dropping of bombs on the people of Gaza. Oh Allah, we ask you to send them mercy and compassion. Oh Allah, we ask you to send them strength. Oh Allah, we ask you to preserve them and their families. Oh Allah, we ask you to keep them dignified as they are. Oh Allah, we ask you to reward them for teaching us. Oh Allah, we ask you to reward the people of Gaza for teaching us what humanity is. Oh Allah, we ask you to reward the people of Gaza for teaching us what bravery and courage and being a man and being a woman is. Oh Allah, we ask and beg of you to send reward upon them in this life and the next. Oh Allah, we ask you to ease the trembling hearts of mothers who have lost their children. Oh Allah, we ask you to ease the difficulty and hardship of the men whose muscles are sore from scratching above the rubble, looking for those that they love. Oh Allah, we ask and beg of you to make us a group of people here in this country capable of speaking on behalf of those who are voiceless. Oh Allah, we ask you to make us capable of being the voice for the voiceless. Oh Allah, we ask you to not let us tire from our own weaknesses of speaking to the truth. Oh Allah, we ask and beg of you to make us worthy of carrying the banner of this message of truth and justice and humanity. Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive us our sins, the ones we commit out in the open and the ones we commit when no one can see but you. Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive us for the sin of cowardice. Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive us for the sin of finding complaints on our tongue that are nothing compared to the difficulty of those who are facing true hardship. Oh Allah, we ask and beg of you to purify our hearts and make us sincere and make us genuine, make us capable of educating those around us with love. Oh Allah, we ask and beg of you to reward those who have come and joined us today in prayer, to connect our hearts on goodness, to keep our feet steadfast on the path that makes you pleased with us. Oh Allah, protect us from making the mistakes that can harm our community, that can harm the people in Gaza. Oh Allah, we ask you to protect those who protect us, the police officers that come and stand guard of us and sometimes, I guess, from us. Oh Allah, we ask you to protect them. We ask you to make this small community in Little Rock perhaps a small light in the darkness that we are surrounded by. Oh Allah, and we ask you that all these lights from every major city in the world, every time you see a protest or people call for the truth, oh Allah, we ask you to make that light up this world and end and cease this darkness. And we ask and beg you to send peace and blessings upon our beloved prophets and the Prophet Muhammad and upon all those who follow him and all who follow them. Wa akhir alhamdulillah rabbil alameen wa qil.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Allahu Akbar. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله. الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you again. We appreciate you all again in a way that we probably can't articulate well. But you'll get a bunch of hugs probably in a few minutes to get ready. And then the other thing I'll say is just because I think it's probably worth an education point, because screaming Allahu Akbar in front of the Capitol building can be scary if you don't know what it means. When you say Allahu Akbar in our religion, though it's been kind of contorted and kind of malused and kind of informed, the word Allahu Akbar to a Muslim means Allah, which means God, is greater. And it's a comparative term because what we're supposed to do when we're praying is think about the things in our lives which God is greater than. So we say Allahu Akbar and we literally throw our hands up when we start prayer. We say this whole world, Allahu Akbar, God is greater than. And then we think of things happening over there and we say those powers who think they're powerful, Allahu Akbar. The weaknesses in ourselves, Allahu Akbar. And then we throw ourselves on the ground in front of God, and that's the format of our prayer that we pray 5 times a day. I just thought it's important to use that as a chance to, because I imagine that could be kind of scary if I wasn't. We really appreciate you coming. Ibrahim is part of the organization team with his wife Adia. They've been really the ones who have really pushed hard on trying to make coordinated events. Every Saturday they've been doing a protest that starts at the Clinton Library, and they march to River Market. It's a really good chance for everybody to come. It's not a prayer format. We really appreciate you coming, but it's not a prayer format. You can chant with us, get all loud like we should about this issue. And then there's some other things. If you want to be part of the WhatsApp group to know what's going on from this community in terms of specifically organizational events related to this issue, just ask him or ask her, and they can add you to the WhatsApp group. And you can listen in the background. You don't have to say anything, just to know when events are happening and spreading the word about this. Is unfortunately the truth is it's not going away. Though we wish it would, right? The intention has been made clear, right? Baby has pretty much said this is going to be months long. That's his plan. So You can't commit war crimes in a day, apparently. So just expect that this is going to be a drawn-out process, and don't get fatigued by it. The best thing that they could hope from our side is that we get tired. Is that we get tired of saying what's true, of praying, of calling out falsehood when we see it, of calling out propaganda. They just hope we get exhausted. And though there are days where we all feel that way, the only way that you can fight that is if you look to your brother or your sister and go, I got you today, get your strength back so we can do it again tomorrow. And so we really appreciate you. That's kind of the messaging.
You can follow our Facebook page, Little Rock Peace for Palestine. One final announcement: tomorrow at 2:30, we're meeting at the Clinton Presidential Center, and we're going to march to the River Market. Very encouraging piece of news. You know, I've been talking to the police about all of this, and you know, they've talked about. I know maybe we feel that maybe it's not making a difference, but a lot of the businesses are complaining to the police, and the police have directed them to our politicians. So our marches, let's make sure to be there. Bring your friends, bring your family. Be consistent. Let's just keep going. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us and following. We're in Little Rock, Arkansas. We'll be in Little Rock, Arkansas again tomorrow. Again at the Clinton Center. Meet there at 2. We'll be marching at 2:30 from the Clinton Center to the River Market. I'll probably be there around 1:30 because I'm early everywhere I go. But thank you for joining us. And if you are in Arkansas, support Palestine and support the Palestinians in your local area and come out. Have a good day. May you be blessed.